Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Amitha Balachandra. We're taking a break from our regular programming to bring you this conversation on a report that Oxfam India has put out. It's called the India Discrimination Report 2022. And a couple of points that the report really puts out is very, very jarring when it comes to gender based discrimination, because the report says that the gender based discrimination is the reason for 98% of the employment gap between males and females, and that number really has not changed in the last 10-15 years, according to this report. The inequality in the employment that women face in the labor market is 100% because of discrimination. The report also says that the lower wages for women are due to 83% of discrimination and 70% due to a lack of education and work experience. So, the report really puts out three aspects that are extremely important. One is religion based discrimination, two, gender based discrimination, and caste minority discrimination. We're going to find out really from Dr. Amitabh Kundu, one of the authors of the India Discrimination Report, who's going to be joining us to really talk about what the difference is in rural and urban areas. How have things changed in the last 10-15 years? What are the things that we need to be looking at, and what measures should the government and employers take in order to improve the numbers? Before I go in, let me introduce Dr. Amitabh Kundu. He's currently the senior fellow at World Resources Institute and Research and Information System for Developing Countries. He is a co-chair of two labor force surveys being conducted by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, and he advises the governments of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh on their statistical system and urban development. Dr. Kundu, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. I want to first focus on gender-based discrimination before we move to religion and caste minorities as well. What is the reason for this massive gap? And the reason I ask this question is one of the charts that the report says is this has been a pattern since 2004-5 till 2019-20, and the gap is massive when compared to religion or even caste-based difference discrimination.
Yeah, in fact, we asked this question that the very large percentage of the women are outside the labor force. They do not work. That does not mean that all those who are not working in the age of 15 plus have gone to the labor market, sat for an interview, or sought a job and have been thrown out. That's not the case. Many of them who are not in the labor market have decided not to go to the labor market because of family condition, because of caste restriction, because upper caste woman is not supposed to be working. So when we are talking about discrimination in this framework, we are not only talking about the discrimination or the prejudices in the minds of the employer, and maybe some of the prejudices in the minds of the employer are like, well, we would like to take them, but the nature of the work is that you have to travel a lot, you have to stay long hours, and the nature of the work is such that the woman will be more vulnerable. So we can perhaps understand, but even that is considered to be discrimination. If a woman does not go to labor market because her elders in the family say, sorry, our bahu or daughter do not work after 18 years of age, even that we are considered to be a part of discrimination. What we notice is that a large number of women with high level of endowments are not entering the labor market. So the difference that we have between a woman who is working and between a woman who is not working is not that of endowments. We find many women who have got a master's degree, graduation degree, who are not in the labor market. But we do not find any men with a master's degree or even a graduation degree not in the labor market. So basically what we are saying is that entry to the labor market, access to the labor market, staying in the labor market and getting earning labor market is not dependent on the endowments. It is depending on other factors. And that is what is coming as 100% in the rural areas, 98% for the urban areas, and there is no declining trend.
So, what you're essentially saying is that women's qualifications have no bearings on their employment or earnings, and that there are other factors, like you mentioned, that are contributing to this, and that's why there's this massive gap. But also, I want to ask you then, you said that it's slightly higher than in rural areas than in urban areas, but what about age? Do you see any difference there? What about women above 25 or below 25?
What you mentioned just now is important. Age, does it make a difference? Indeed, we ran alternate formulations. Basically, we're using a mathematical model adjusted to the Indian conditions using the employment data from the official sources. So there is no subjectivity of the researcher included. All those standardized formats that we have in the National Sample Survey, we have used that data to show that the level of discrimination for a woman above 25 years of age is less compared to the woman between 15 to 25. The reasons are not difficult to see. The reason why a woman of 15 to 25 are discriminated more because marriage, childbearing, and the discrimination is at both the ends. The employer doesn't want the young girl to come in because he's not very sure whether she will be there in employment for the next 5 years or so. Similarly, from the family side, well, there are objections. There will be, all related to marriage that will result in a break. There could be differences in the break in the marriage because of the childbirth or any ailment that takes place. So we find that certainly age is an important factor.
Let's now focus on caste-based discrimination, because the table, when it comes to employment and wages, both say that there is an improvement. If I look at the employment table, in 2004 it was 69.1% for SC/ST. It's now improved to 39.3%. Why is there that improvement when it comes to caste-based discrimination? Would you call it an improvement at all?
I would think so. I think this difference that we have reflected in the level of discrimination, the percentage of the total gap being explained in terms of endowments have gone up. And the residual, which cannot be explained in terms of the differences in endowments between scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and non. We have combined scheduled caste and scheduled tribe into one category, because if you don't combine, the National Sample Survey does not give enough observations. The statistical rigor will disappear. That's why we have to combine. And we do find that the level of discrimination has declined over time, over the period of last 15 years. And frankly, we didn't have to look for the reasons. I mean, it is obvious that the mindset which existed in the early years of the present century must have undergone some change with modernization, with also, educational level. I would also think that the nature of work, because of the technology coming in, improving over time, does not require individual to individual personal level reaction or interaction or shaking hands, because technology allows you to do the work at a distance. And that could be a factor which is responsible for the reduction.
I also want to ask a quick question on what the difference is in urban and rural areas. Is there a difference there?
My God, you have just taken the question from my lips. This is a very significant point, that you do find that in the rural areas, the discrimination tends to be for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population, tends to be much higher than in the urban areas. That's because I think the rural society is conscious about the caste, and the benefits of reservation is in the public sector organizations. There is not much of public sector jobs in the rural areas. They're all in the urban areas. And a scheduled tribe population, in order to take the advantage of reservation, mostly shift to the urban areas. That's why among the scheduled tribe population who are in urban areas, you do find large percentage of them are through reservation. So indeed, reservation for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population in the urban areas is much less because often they, work, once they are in the job, if they are in the regular employment, there can't be any wage discrimination because they are in the regular employment. In the rural areas, caste identities are very, very prominent. And also, the kind of jobs that you have in the rural areas involve the personal interaction, person to person interaction. And that's why you do find that the rural society is not still responding to this, scheduled tribe, scheduled caste populations being engaged in a more, larger percentage. Even still, it is not happening. But over time, you do find that discrimination has gone down both in the rural and urban areas against scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population.
If you can also explain to us what the findings are when it comes to religion based discrimination, because if I look at the table, it seems like there is an improvement. Is that only in rural areas, like the report points out, or also in urban areas?
Well, the improvement in the rural areas, as you say from the data, is significant. So I think in the urban areas also there is improvement because many of these scheduled caste people are working through agencies. If you are in the mason, you are in the construction sector, or you are in repair services. So people, the urban consumers don't get to know the caste of the person, or the religion of that person for that matter. And when the person comes and works, you pay. You don't ask the question about what's your religion and what's your caste before you make the payment. Payment is decided through this formal arrangement. So these agency factor coming in, agency taking up the provision of services and recruiting, that could be also a factor which is resulting in decline in the discrimination against the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population.
All right. Dr. Kundu, thank you so much for speaking to us and giving us your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitaji.